Okay, guys, I'm back. Had to take a phone call, but let's continue. Let's continue with that story I was telling you about a lady that had encountered Bigfoot not only once but on numerous occasions. And so I believe this too. She claims, they don't like to come out when people are recording. I've heard lots of stories, not just her story. Many times people saying, they're aware, saying they're aware if you have a camera. They are even aware of your aura. So this lady was saying, that the Bigfoot sees an aura around you. And if it's the color that they are known to approach people, meaning you have good intentions, meaning you're a good person, meaning you're not a threat to them, meaning you're not trying to, get information and give it to somebody, which is so weird to me because I've never heard that before, but I totally believe it. Because why do you think there's so many people that can't get footage of them? Because there are a lot of bad people in this world. And I imagine their auras are probably going to be, the opposite of what a Bigfoot is looking for. Untrustworthy, not reliable, about to harm them. That's probably why, that's probably why a lot of people don't get footage. They're aware that's going on. And then I found that to be the craziest thing, that they can see your aura, that they know if you're a good person or not, that they will only talk to the people with that color aura. I just find that so crazy. So crazy. That really opened my eyes to something. And then the shape-shifting thing. I've heard many stories about shape-shifting. A lot of deer that are shapeshifters. And what I find strange about that is I have personally never heard too many of those shape-shifting stories before. And when I was doing an investigation with my mom, I saw the strangest looking deer. And it was before I met up with her. I was on my way to do an investigation at a park with her. And this deer just stood at the road staring, not moving. And it looked different. It looked like this deer was from the prehistoric times. And I wish I could have got this recorded. Like I would love to have a recording of that deer, because it didn't have antlers. I mean, I know it was a female, but it was just so big. It almost looked as big as 3 deer put together, 2 or 3. It was just such a big deer, and it was so prehistoric looking. The snout was extra long. It was a lot lighter in color. It's kind of hard to describe, but I know what I saw, and I feel like that just wasn't a deer. I don't know what it could have been, but I feel like it wasn't just a deer. And we were out there, in wooded areas. I'm just wondering, what could that have been? I mean, you never really know, but anyway, okay. So I told the story about that girl, and apparently that girl was a psychic as well. They went out into the woods just to do like spirit work, readings, I don't know, different things like that. And she never in her life had seen a Bigfoot before, and all of a sudden she started seeing them on a regular basis out in the woods. And apparently she had that aura, etc. But I guess they left her gifts or something like that. It's kind of hard for me to recall all these stories, but they left a lot of people different gifts. Oh, I know what it was. It just popped into my head. How could I forget this? This is the strangest thing ever. So it gave her this geocrystal type looking rock, but it was all white. It almost looked like just regular quartz, right? Clear, whitish, but it was in the shape of a foot. In the shape of a foot, like a Bigfoot. But it was only like this big, but it looked like a foot. I do not think that's a coincidence at all. That was so cool. Okay, so then what else? What other stories was told? So there were stories about the men in black, you know, people trying to get pictures of these Sasquatch and trying to get hair samples and things like that. But then these guys in these suits would show up and take the evidence right out of their hand. So I heard a story about this guy with, when it, you know, it was an unmarked vehicle, Ohio plates. The woman didn't get the license plate, but the man was just wearing a suit. He had a briefcase. He took the hair samples away, said, "You can't use this." Took the video evidence they had away, and then they even had a footprint in the dirt. And according to this documentary, this man messed up the footprint. He messed up the footprint. Oh wait, there wasn't video evidence. It was a picture. A Kodak picture that a little kid took, and he snatched it out of a little kid's hand. So yeah, that sounds like a weird cover-up situation, but again, I'm telling you the story that I heard. But there are multiple occasions of these men in black. I'm sure you heard of them. But yeah, it has to do with aliens or Bigfoot, and you know, them taking the evidence and destroying it and telling you this conversation never happened. You're not to talk about this to anyone in the public, you know, that type of thing. But according to this documentary as well, over the course of time, the men in black have taken a different appearance to themselves. Like, instead of the black suit, black tie, briefcase, so now they're going around dressed as army or hunters, or I think mainly like army. I think they wear army fatigue and carry around guns, and they're out in the woods, you know. But many people were confused as to why they were out in the woods. And then this one man claimed that he saw a whole bunch of them, these army men, in an unmarked vehicle up in the mountains. I think this was by one of the ridge, they call it. I forget the name of the ridge, but there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings there. And instead of taking the trails, like the marked trails that are out where people hike, they went to all these unknown areas that were not marked, and they disappeared into the woods and never came back out. That's strange too. Okay, now I'm remembering this other story I heard. There's this other man, and his stories are so freaking cool when he goes into detail with these stories that he tells. But one of my favorite stories was that him and his friend, it wasn't just him, so there was two people that saw this, were out in the woods. He saw this orb, and it was like orangish, glowing. It was on the horizon, so he didn't think much of it. He thought, oh, you know, it could be a light from, you know, a building or a farm or whatever. But then he claimed, you know, he saw this light, it started changing colors and getting bigger and bigger. So then he thought it was kind of weird. So then he got his friend and said, hey, come look at this. His friend saw the same thing. This orb got so big because it was coming closer to them. And then it turned into a square. And then he saw what looked like a door open, and some object or entity or something went inside of it, and then it just got smaller and took off and vanished. So is that a portal for, you know, for spirits, for Sasquatch? You never know what those portals contained, you know. And then there was another story about two different guys. Two guys out doing, you know, their Sasquatch hunting, and they actually did come across something really crazy. So they saw, it looked like a cat, just like a tabby cat or something on the side of the road. And they saw it change into like an orangutan. And then it changed into a big, tall, dark, hairy creature, which they called Sasquatch. And then it changed. It just kept morphing into different things right in front of their eyes. And then it changed into like this square. And then it just took off. Like shot off into the sky. So the square looked like an orb or something like that. They even had an artist come and, you know, draw these as they remembered them. And the artwork was so cool. I wish you could see it. But I'm telling you all these stories from these documentaries I watched, so you don't have to go and watch them all. But then again, after you hear these stories, you're probably going to want to watch them all. Excuse me. So then, all right, so I think I told pretty much all the Sasquatch stories. Let me go into the latest thing I saw about an alien and a flying saucer. So it happened in Brazil in a place called, oh my gosh, what was it called? Hold on. It'll come to me. Darn, what was the name of that city in Brazil? It's like right on the top of my head, but I can't think of it. Maybe I'll think of it later. But in Brazil, you know, somebody had a sighting of an alien creature. Well, first they saw this huge thing shaped like a cigar or a submarine, and it was in the sky, and it looked like it was getting smaller and smaller because it was crashing, right? I mean, bigger and bigger because it was crashing, because it was coming to the land. And it looked like it had damage on the front of it. That's why it was coming down, because it was damaged. And not just one person, but there were more than 2-3 witnesses that claimed they saw the same thing, and they didn't even know each other. So then it crashed. So then this man goes where the crash happens, thinking, you know, people could be in danger, they might need help, let me go see if I can help them. So he goes to this crashed thing, I don't know, saucer, submarine, flying submarine, you know, I don't know what to call it. But no, this is real. And he said he smelled something awful, like a sulfur, ammonia, or some kind of weird smell. And more than one person were talking about this smell. So apparently this is how the aliens smell to people. Sulfury, ammonia, and let me warn you, I mean, if anyone saw him, I'm sure you wouldn't want to approach him, but you really don't want to now, because they caused this one man to get an infection so bad that he died from it, because he touched one of the creatures. So not this man, but a different man. So let me just get to that story. So this man that saw the ship crash and went to go help, And then these army trucks started rolling in and told him to leave, to get out, to go. You can't be here. They pulled out a gun on him and said, you need to leave. So, of course he leaves. I mean, don't you think you have freedom to be wherever you want to be? But no, apparently, you know, I think because it's not safe. But then a lot of other people think because it's a cover-up. I mean, it could be, but it could also be because they're trying to protect us. I mean, what kind of weird stuff is that? There's two sides to it once again. There's a cover-up, there's security and being safe. But at the same time, they shouldn't be pointing a gun at someone. That's not okay. So, that happened. And then another guy, oh no, yeah, let me get to the other guy. So the other guy was a police officer, saw one of these creatures after that thing had crashed. It was some ways away. I guess it tried to get away or whatever. He saw it and he tried to save it. He actually picked it up with his bare hands. This thing is a dark black. It's got oily skin. It's got these big, big eyes. What they described as 3 times bigger than our eyes. So I would imagine the eyes are about like that. And they're red. So he picks up this creature, and then their feet are looking something like this, with 2 toes, maybe 3 toes. Someone described it with 3 toes, someone described it with 2. And he picked this thing up and took it into a hospital. And apparently somebody asked one of the doctors to do x-rays, but said, you can't keep any of this, you can't tell anyone about this. The x-rays stay with us. So he made sure that the hospital didn't keep any copies. He made sure, he told the man, you know, you can't tell anyone the story or what you saw. And yeah, the guy that picked up the creature ended up dying from an infection. And then his wife came forward and said there were pages from the hospital papers missing, that they were demanding money. If she, you know, needed to know more about this, they wanted money. They wanted money. There were pages missing. The whole thing is just really bizarre. So even she, to this day, does not know the exact cause of death of her own husband, besides the fact that he had an infection from this creature. And then, let's see, what else? I mean, this stuff is just, oh yeah, there were 3 women as well who saw a creature. And they were going on a walk or something like that. And there was graffiti on the wall. And the woman was looking at their graffiti and saw this creature right under it. And she said it looked scared. And it was black, oily skin, big eyes, red, 3 times the size of her eyes, smelled like sulfur and ammonia or whatever. She said it smelled so bad. And she said the look on its face, like it was frightened, like it was just scared. And then she said they turned around and came back, and his eyes were slits at that point. Like maybe he died, or maybe he was dying. I don't know, but that's creepy. And then these women had the men in black arrive at their house, of course. And, you know, they rang the doorbell. They kind of just forced themselves in. There were these men carrying clipboards. One was writing the story down. One had a briefcase. And he said, you can be really rich. You can take this money, but you can't tell anyone any of this, or your lives will become very difficult, or something like that. She refused the money. She said, you know, we don't want to become liars on national television because it's already, like, the information was already leaked that they saw this creature. This was, I guess, 1996. And, yeah, she said no to the money. They left, and that was that. But yeah, it was them trying to say, you know, we don't want this information to get out. Don't tell anybody. We'll make you rich right now on the spot. You can take this money. And she just refused it because she didn't want her and her daughters to look like liars. So that was another story. Let's see if I can recall any other stories off the top of my head. I mean, there are a lot of stories that I've listened to that were very intriguing. And there was another family that saw something. They saw like a flying saucer in the sky, and the men in black arrived at their house and asked them what they saw. And then this other man in the army, the one that was there, he showed up at the hospital because he was sent on a mission to transport this alien creature. And he showed up at the hospital when they were done with the x-rays, and he saw it and started freaking out, like in his head, like, what is this thing? You know, he saw the dark skin, the oily skin, the feet, like this shaped feet or whatever, and he just started freaking out. But he was sent on a mission to transport this creature to somewhere else, and I don't know where this creature ended up at. I mean, you never really know where they end up, but they were all over the place. But he had transported it, and then one of the men in charge at the place he transported it to was like quizzing him. What did you see? Tell me what you saw. And he says he's trying to like cover up what he saw because he was scared. He said, oh, I think it might have just been a man that was burnt. That's what it looked like to me. You know, he's playing it off. And then the man that was in charge was like, no. Told him what it was and said, now this information cannot get out, or your life will become very difficult. So anyway, that's all of the stories I have for now. If I can think of anything else, I will let you know. But I'm trying to think of where to take this now. Oh, another thing I have thought about. Dybbuk box. Have you heard of that? Have you heard any stories about the Dybbuk box? So apparently it's this box that somebody puts an evil spirit into, sends it to someone, and if they unleash it, they're going to have all this bad luck, all these bad things happen to them, you know, because the evil spirit will be released into their house. So I saw a whole series on that. That was so scary. I would never want to open up one of those things. You don't know what you're welcoming into your house. I don't feel good around something like that. But tell me your thoughts on that. I don't know. And then this one man claimed to have been sent a Dybbuk box from a fan of his. He was like a you know, he was always on social media type of person. I don't know what kind of company he ran, but his fans, I don't know, someone sent it to him. And he claims that there was an awful smell that came out of it, and then all this smoke came out. He said it smelled like cat pee. I don't know. I'm sure all these Dybbuk boxes are different. But the one he received was like that. And he had a girlfriend, and they both were having the same reoccurring nightmares about a lady with a shawl around her face, like she might have been Arab or I don't know, Muslim or something. I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong. But, you know, she always was wearing one of those scarves around. And then they both had recurring nightmares about the same lady. So it had something to do with her, but I don't know what it was she wanted from them. I mean, there was never really a clear story on that, besides the fact there were strange things happening. He was hearing weird noises at night. Excuse me. His animals were acting weird, you know, that type of thing. And then there's another story I wanted to share. And then I saw something about a Ouija board. There was a story about a Ouija board. Now, I am not cool with the Ouija board. That's something I don't want to do, but I don't know. People have mixed feelings about it. Some people are not totally against it. They say if you use it in the right way, you know, as long as you're not using it for any negativity or any bad reasons, they say that it's okay, as long as you're communicating and close it off properly and everything else. But I would never do it. I don't feel comfortable. So different people feel different ways. But there were these, I don't know if they were in their mid-20s or teenagers or what, but they were playing around with a Ouija board, which first of all is not a good idea. But there was a documentary made on it that they were in a hotel room. They were in number 666. It had said to have been a haunted hotel room to begin with. And then they brought in the Ouija board, and then they brought in a Dybbuk box on top of that. They opened up the Dybbuk box. They used the Ouija board to communicate, and it was telling them, I mean, it was speaking to them. Now, this story, I honestly don't know if I believe it or not, but I do believe that the Dybbuk box they ended up with was a fake. But, I mean, they still could have been spoken to by a spirit. I'm not going to say that's all fake, but I just think it was a bunch of teenagers messing around with the wrong stuff, was what I chalked it up to be. But I mean, it was just an interesting episode to watch. But once again, like I told you in the beginning, there's certain things I would not mess with. No Dybbuk boxes, no Ouija boards, no negative haunted locations for me. You know, the only things I go and investigate would be something normal. For instance, my mom and I went and we investigated a woman that had died in a car crash, which is very sad. Especially because she could have had a very long life ahead of her. She was killed by a drunk driver. That's what I mean by something more normal. I mean, it's obviously still not normal, but she's not a negative demonic entity, you know. She's just a normal woman that had died. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, what do you think about something like that? She didn't deserve to die, obviously. But why do people like that get killed by someone who had been drinking too heavily? And she just happened to be right next to that building where the man plowed his truck into. I mean, it makes you really think. You know, 1 minute before that, she could have been somewhere else. 2 seconds before that, she wouldn't have been in his path. It's just strange to wrap your mind around these things, you know. But yeah, I only like to investigate things where I feel like the person was a normal person living on this world and not some kind of weird spirit that was conjured up from some, you know, crazy teenagers or something. So anyway, I just told you a lot of things. So I'm actually getting tired of talking for now. But I'm going to go ahead and edit this footage, and I'm going to see you guys later. So I hope everyone's having a awesome day. So I hope everyone had an awesome day today. It's Wednesday, October 8th, 2025. Tomorrow I'm going to my mom's house, and I don't think we're going to do any investigating, but you never know what could happen. But I'm going to take these stories.
Rambling.
I'm going to take these stories and turn them into an episode of OMG Original Mystic Gals, because I feel like these stories could be very beneficial to you and you could learn a lot from it. I know I did. I learned a lot in the last week because I've been doing nothing but watching documentary after documentary after documentary. So anyway, don't forget to check out the new Paranormal Mysteries show on, let me see what website that is. I know it's called Beacon TV, but there's 2 different Beacon TVs, so I don't want to give you the wrong information. This website is streambeacontv.com. 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 It's all one word. I've watched so many documentaries on there. It's crazy. So anyway, yeah. I'm gonna stop rambling. And if I think of anything else good, I will continue this. If not, peace out for now. Until next time. I just have to tell you one more thing. So it's about fairies, and goblins and elementals. So a lot of people, when they think about fairies, they think of these pretty little glowing things with wings, right? Well, normally that might be the case, but a lot of times when people are talking about fairies, when it comes to the paranormal, they're talking about elemental spirits. So the really old spirits that have been around for centuries upon centuries, and they're still here. A lot of times they're not pretty like we imagine them to be. So yeah, that's what I wanted to tell you about fairies. And then goblins, what do you think about them? I feel like goblins have a lot to do with demonic spirits that, you know, want to harm people, or even could have something relating to aliens. You know, what do you think about them? I'm not an expert on them, but I did find out about fairies, so I just thought that was interesting. They're not what we think of them in our brains.